Okay, so we're gonna pull a handle today, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. I started by wedging my clay, then I rolled it just out a little bit on one end. This is gonna be where I hold my handle to pull it, and this is gonna be where I pull my handle. To do this project, all you need is a bowl of water and a piece of clay. So you get your hand wet, and you just start pulling the clay down. Every time you do one pull, I want you to rotate it 180 degrees and pull again. So I'm just going to go back and forth, pulling the clay down into a handle shape. Each time I do it, I'm rotating my clay and my hand so that I'm pulling it from opposite sides. Depending on the size of your handle, you're going to have to do this as many times as it takes to thin out that handle enough so it's a good size for the piece that you're going to be attaching it to. You pull your handle when your piece is dry and ready to be trimmed. So the day that you're going to trim your piece that you want to attach your handle to is the day that you pull your handle. So you'll pull your handle first, like I'm doing. When you're done pulling the handle, you'll attach it to the table. Let it sit while you do your trimming, and then when you come back, it'll be set up enough for you to attach it to your cup or whatever you're attaching the handle to. So notice as I'm pulling down on the clay, it's starting to thin out and get a really nice handle-like shape. Because I'm putting it on just a cup, I want it to be nice and thin though, so I'm just going to keep doing this a couple times so that I end up with a nice thin mug-like handle. My piece here is getting kind of a collection on the bottom, so I'm going to just chop that piece off so that it doesn't start to pull my handle into a weird shape. So if you ever notice that the bottom of your handle is getting really thick and it's kind of pulling apart from your handle, you can just chop it off and keep pulling. Do this a few more times. I'm getting close to the shape that I might like. And that looks pretty good. So that's my handle that I'm going to use on my cup after I trim. So now that I'm done, I'm just going to attach this to the side of the table like so. So this is going to give it that nice handle shape, and it's going to set up in that shape for when we want to attach it to our cup. So I'm just going to rinse off my hands, and then we're going to move over to the wheel and do the trimming half of this project. So I'm going to start today by trimming this piece, and then I'm going to be attaching a handle to it. This is just a basic cylinder. It is now leather hard, so it's not moldable. It's stiff, it holds its shape, and it's the perfect time to trim it. It's not too dry though, so that the clay is going to come off as powder. It's just dry enough that I'm going to be able to carve into this nicely. So it's the perfect leather hard consistency. This piece is not entirely level, so I'm just going to build up using a coil this side of the piece that's a little bit lower. If your piece is level, you don't need to do this step, but if your piece is a little bit not even and you're finding it's a little bit not level, then you'll just build up one side of it with a coil. So that's a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to use to trim. The next step is to get your piece upside down and centered on your wheel. So first I'm going to just eyeball the centeredness. And that looks close to me. So with my wheel on, I'm going to get it moving slowly where my left hand, or if you're left-handed, your right hand, is just gently resting on top so that it doesn't go flying off. There's a couple of ways you could check centeredness. You could use your finger and watch how close it comes to your finger, and that should be a nice even distance the whole time around. Or you could use your pin tool and mark a circle around the center of the piece. So if you want to just come and have a quick look at this. So this circle marks the center of my wheel head, and you can see that the piece, the outside edge of the piece is not completely even with the center of the wheel head. So this area here where it's a little bit thicker than on this side, I'm going to slide towards the center. I can erase this line really quickly and then try it again. And you'll do this as many times as you need until it gets centered. So it looks like I still have just a little bit of more unevenness on this side. So I'll erase that line and try one more time. This is the most finicky part about trimming, is just getting your piece recentered. And that looks to be pretty close to me. So that's where we're gonna attach our clay. So now that you've got it centered, you don't want it to move out of that place. So you're just gonna create some little thick coils of clay, press down on the top of your piece, and make a little nest around your piece just so it doesn't slide around. Just enough to keep it in place. Make sure you're pushing down on your piece so it's not going to move while you're building that nest. Try and push straight down rather than into your piece, because that's another thing that might cause it to move around. Alright, so now that I have it centered and it's secured to the wheel, I'm going to start with this bigger trimming tool. My elbows are always locked into my hips so that they are nice and stable and secure. The point of trimming is to keep this tool as still as possible and allow the piece to cut around it. So I'm going to get my wheel spinning about a medium fast speed. Always have your left hand or your not dominant hand on top of your piece, just in case it decided to fly off anywhere. And then when you're ready, gently bring the tool down to your piece and start trimming away that excess. So I always usually start with the bottom, getting the bottom nice and level, and then I'll move on to the side. So for the side, you're going to want to have your tool parallel with how you want it to cut. So I have a lot of excess clay down here at the bottom, so I'm going to hold it just at a 45-degree angle and get rid of a lot of that excess clay. So I'm just pushing down gently with my left hand just to keep my piece from flying up. It's more likely to fly up while you're trimming the sides rather than trimming the top, so that's why I keep that pressure with my left hand. You can go as far down on your piece as you like. I think I'm happy with that. So the next step to trimming is to create a foot on your piece. This is so that your piece lies nice and flat on the surface that you're going to place it on. If you don't make this foot, sometimes it might wobble around if it doesn't have a nice flat surface to sit on. And it also gives us a place to end our glazing. So I'm going to use the flat end of this loop tool, and I find that this is a good distance for a foot. So I'm just going to hold my piece parallel with the edge of the piece I'm trimming, or my tool parallel, and trim off that little section so that when I'm glazing, I'm going to glaze to this point and not glaze the foot. The next step to adding the foot is to get rid of all of this center clay, and that's just to give this outside rim is where I want my cup to sit. So I'm going to just trim away all of that center clay. So again, like always, my elbows are tucked nice and close to my body. The tool stays as still as possible, and I gently, with gentle pressure, trim out the center of the cup. If at this point you trimmed a little bit too far and you made a hole in the base of your pot or whatever it is you're working with, it is still fixable. So we could roll out a slab and attach a slab to repair your hole, or we could do a couple other things. So if that happens, don't worry, it still may be salvageable. So there's my finished foot. So if you weren't going to do anything else to this piece, if this was a finished piece, you would write your name on the bottom and it would be ready for marking. If you wanted to do something else to the piece before it was finished, like add a handle, this is the time when you would add the handle to your piece. So there we go. Another good indicator of good trimming is the weight of the piece. So you want to have the walls be a nice even thickness throughout so that it doesn't feel heavy. So if you have even thickness walls at the bottom and throughout the sides, your piece should feel light as a feather even if it's a huge piece. So the even thickness in the walls is what dictates the weight of your piece. If you have lots of weight at the bottom, it's going to feel heavy at the bottom, no matter what, even if it's not very much clay. So there's a cup, and we're now going to attach a handle to this cup. Okay, so now we have our piece trimmed and our handle pulled. This is how we attach a handle to a trimmed piece. So this is the part of the handle that I like. This is the shape and size of the handle that I like. So right about here, I'm going to start by cutting at a 45-degree angle away from myself into the handle. So then I end up with a cut like that. I work on the edge of the table just so that once I attach this handle, it has space to hang down. Whenever you're attaching two pieces of clay, you always want to score and slip. So I'm going to attach this handle right about here, close to the top of the cup. I'm going to score this side as well. And then with the slip, which acts like the glue. And then I'm going to attach that handle. When you're attaching the handle, it's good to have the consistency of the handle close to the consistency of the cup. So the longer you let your handle sit, the better. But you don't want to leave it sit too long because then it's going to dry out. So finding that balance is key. So you could use your pin tool to clean up this edge, or you could use a wooden stick. There is the handle attached to the cup. So the next step will be to figure out how I want this handle to look. So do I want it to be up and bigger like this, or maybe I want it to be down? I think I like it a little bit larger. So I'm going to cut it off here. And again, whenever you're attaching two pieces, you want to score and slip them. For this one, I'm just going to press that on. And I'm going to use my pin tool and just trim that up a bit. There we go. To let your cup dry, it's always nice to let it hang upside down, and that's going to keep that nice shape of your lid. And then let it dry like so. So there's your finished cup with a handle. So you would put your name on the bottom of this if you haven't already, and then hand it in. This would also be a great time to add any additions that you're working on. So if you were working on your additions project, you would make the pieces that you want to add, and then you would trim your piece, and then come back, and once the pieces have had time to set up a little bit and dry a little bit, then you would attach them to your trimmed piece.